Inscryption is an absolute favourite of mine, or at least Act 1 is. One of, if not the best deck building roguelites ever made, and despite the unfortunate fact that the other two acts fall a little short of these perfect beginnings, from start to finish it is an incredibly realised aesthetic, and game as a whole, no doubt. There hasn't really been anything like it. Until now. If Inscryption was a mysterious game with a mind of its own trapped inside an old floppy disk, then Desktop Explorer feels like the Y2K era computer that you might use to play it. The same level of commitment to nailing down that retro vibe, the same innovative spin on a genre that we've seen a million times before, and also a few of the same problems, but we'll get to that. Oh, and before I forget, the computer has a mind of its own too. Of course. Just as Inscryption did around 5 years ago now, Desktop Explorer captured me hook, line, and sinker with possibly one of the best realized, though before my time, aesthetics I've had the pleasure of presenting to you on this channel. The ability to make a 23-year-old nostalgic for an era he was born in the tail end of is an underappreciated one. Now, I had a Game Boy Color and I played 90s CD-ROM games as a kid, so it wasn't totally foreign to me, but Desktop Explorer made me feel like I was really a part of that early internet age. So, funnily enough, contrary to what I've just implied, the game is set fairly recently. Well, fairly recently meaning 2012, which was 14 years ago. Our protagonist, nicknamed Guppy, has received her uncle's living inheritance in the form of an old PC that thankfully still works and hasn't been wiped in a long, long time. Awakening this relic sucks her into an unsolved missing persons case seemingly tied to an enigmatic puzzle game called, and you might have guessed it, Desktop Explorer. And at its core, that is what this game is, a puzzle game, and a pretty damn good one at that. It brings not only the old OS aesthetic to the table, but integrates it into every puzzle and every solution. A large portion of the game is contingent on finding passwords to open folders that lead to more puzzles for passwords to open more folders, but the means is where it gets complicated, and where I start to call it an inscription-like, which is a term I have made up that will never have a concrete definition and will be what I want it to be. Anyhow, finding a password might be as simple as clicking on the right text file. Every readable password is labeled as one. This seemed awfully convenient to me at first, but to be honest, I'm certain I'd still be playing it if they weren't made painfully obvious. I mean, it took me just under 10 hours to get through the whole thing. Now, some passwords aren't explicit, and even those that are get increasingly harder to find. One minute I was editing a magic word into the source code of a storytelling application, and the next I was manipulating the date and time of the PC itself to do some fucking math. It's always gotta be math, huh? Yes, I had to ask my girlfriend to come help me do my calculations. Thank you. There's a puzzle or three for everyone, and while they can't all be hits, each was just as inventive as the last. I really appreciate a developer that offers something new to me. I found myself enjoying the sheer creativity on display as much, if not more, than the puzzle solving itself. The entire game is essentially about booting up an OS semi-simulation game on a modern PC to play different puzzle games within that game, and they toy with that in a very fun and immersive way. However, I think Desktop Explorer has a little bit of a yellow paint problem in that, I understand the symbols denoting a password were a preventative measure, but it goes far beyond that. Throughout the game, almost every single important word or sentence is given some special effect or coloring to make sure the player pays attention to it, often in places where it was already pretty obvious. And on the other hand, there were a few times where the game seemed to shy away from helping me out, sometimes even highlighting misleading clues when some yellow paint would have been much appreciated. Though, look, the inventive nature of every puzzle manages to offset this pain a little bit, as messing with file names or exploring 90s chat room games is tactile and interesting no matter how much a solution was spelled out to me. And again, sometimes they did need to be spelled out to me. This shit can get pretty difficult. I was stuck more than I'd like to admit. So I've certainly gushed about the vibe already, but I haven't yet explained how the dev team at Recurring Dream managed to get me swept up so efficiently. You've seen the visuals on the screen for ages now, but on the off chance you're listening to this while doing something else, Desktop Explorer commits wholeheartedly to a CRT feel with scan lines, artificial screen curvature, the whole thing, and the desktop is ripped straight from that era while feeling iterative and styled to make it unique to this game and not something you can recreate without such fantastic art direction. But that's only the half of it. You may have the volume high enough to hear Desktop Explorer's soundtrack ducked under my voice, so you'd know it is fantastic, though what you don't know is that there is a ridiculous amount of unique tracks in this thing. Some made to bolster the theme of specific puzzles and then never again. Whether it's for my favorite fish tank screensaver that does function like a real screensaver, which is cool, or to ham up the emotional drama of the chronolog entries. Many of these tunes I can even see myself listening to in a different context. Now what you can't hear is the sound design, and that's where it all becomes really convincing. Typing produces the clicks and clacks of a fat old fucking keyboard, the mouse follows suit, but the really convincing part is the ambience they've elected to include. The whir of a PC that would probably explode trying to play this game, let alone any other game in today's world. Something about it is incredibly calming, and if I wasn't frothing at the mouth over a puzzle I really should have solved 20 minutes ago, and if it had come out a few years earlier, I guess, I'd probably use this game instead of antidepressants. Ironically, half the characters in Desktop Explorer could have popped Zoloft for a few months and none of this would have happened. This being the overarching family drama / mystery contextualizing all that puzzling, it is good. I think it is strongest when it's in its infancy and gets weaker and more complicated as time goes on. Never bad and always told incredibly well, mind you. There is some great writing here and a few well-placed conversations about trauma, independence, fatherhood, but I'm not quite sure it sticks the landing and leaves up to interpretation most of what I was actually interested in uncovering. That being said, it did more than enough to motivate me from beginning to end, and though in a vacuum I was disappointed, I was satisfied by the entire package. Pause. But that does kind of bring me to discuss what I meant when I said Desktop Explorer has a few of the same problems as my beloved Inscryption. I'm acting like it's a big mystery, but I think it's pretty obvious, especially by now. Desktop Explorer is never as good as its first act, even if the rest is still great. Its tale isn't as tightly wound, its gameplay isn't as well defined within the aesthetic, it leans into the OS simulation aspect the most in the beginning. But this is not an OS simulation game, it is a puzzle game with a similar coat of paint. Don't get me wrong, that isn't so much of a criticism, that's more of a warning to amend your expectations. Beyond the first act, as you've no doubt seen by now, the game gets more, well, gamey. Some of the puzzles become more standard, still well within the realms of being fresh, but by comparison they feel like a bit of a step down. I enjoyed Inscryption the whole way through, as I did for this one, but even Daniel Mullins knew how perfect the first act was, with the release of Casey's mod all but solidifying the fact. Look, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a problem. Many games are front-loaded, it's the safe thing to do, and let me bring you back, this game is still absolutely phenomenal. But I took note of a few negative reviews expressing this frustration, and I get it, but mismatched expectations can ruin even the best of games, so hopefully if this recommendation convinces you to buy it, you'll have the right ones. And well, yeah, I do recommend Desktop Explorer. For the vibe, I recommend it. For the gameplay, I recommend it. For the music, I recommend it. Play it for what it is, and I have all the confidence in the world you'll enjoy it. Hey, if you're still with me, I'm James, and if you happen to enjoy the video, please do consider dropping a sub. I promise I am in it for the long run. Thanks!